On this episode, we learn about Pedestrian Level of Service in Fort Collins, Colorado. Then we look at the Active Living Partnership in Denver. The developer of the Stapleton Airport site values walkability. Victoria, British Columbia hosts the ProWalk, Probike conference. Cobblestones form tripping hazards for senior citizens. Finally, we go on the Seattle Clock Walk. Stay tuned. We're in Fort Collins, Colorado, talking with Mark Jackson, who's a transportation planning manager. What's this pedestrian mall we're on?
This is the Old Town District, John. This is a 1.5 block long pedestrian mall that was converted from a traditional street in 1984. It's really become the focal point of the downtown area in Fort Collins, and it's really kind of our pedestrian-oriented pride and joy.
Some pedestrian malls work better than others. What's gone into making this one successful?
I think it's location. I think it's also the type of store mix between entertainment, restaurants, and shopping. And it's very, very accessible. The Downtown Business Association also does an amazing job as far as special events. So this has really become known as the focal point of the Fort Collins area.
And Fort Collins, for several years now, has been dealing with something called multimodal level of service.
Right.
What's that?
Multimodal level of service. Traditionally, when you're doing a review of development applications or redevelopment, you'll ask the developer to meet certain levels of service standards for the automobile. Well, we do that in Fort Collins, but what we also do is take it one notch further, in that we also ask them to meet level of service standards for pedestrian facilities, for bicycle facilities, and for transit facilities as well. And
how does one measure each of these? Let's start with automobiles. What's traditionally been measured for automobiles?
Traditionally, it's the amount of traffic that will be generated by the proposed site or the proposed development, delay, congestion, turn movements, intersection design, those types of things. With pedestrian, we look at different types of things. We look at things such as the continuity of the system. Is there a continuous sidewalk or pedestrian system? Is it direct? Do you have to go out of your way to get where you want to go as a pedestrian, or can you get there in a very direct manner? And then we also look at the safety aspects of it in terms of the intersection crossings, as far as their design, as far as their pedestrian refuge, sight distance, those sorts of things. And then we look at the design piece, and the design piece is obviously, you can see that here in the Old Town District. It's a very pleasant, very attractive site. It's very inviting for the pedestrian.
The remaining two modes, bicycles, transit, what's level of service look at there?
Really for bicycle, it is the level of service for bicycle is completing the system. We have a plan, a long-range vision for a very complete bicycle network, both on-street and recreational trail types of systems, and we want to move forwards towards meeting that full system connectivity. With transit, it's a little bit different. We're looking at trying to make sure that development does not preclude the implementation of our long-range vision for transit service. So we ask them to have facilities in place that will help us meet our not only our interim 5 and 10-year goals, but also our long-range goals.
How did you get started on looking at multimodal level of service, and what was out there when you got started?
This is something that's been going on well before my time here. I've been here since 1999. Fort Collins has always been a very active community. It's a university town, so like a lot of university towns, we have a real high percentage of people who do choose to walk where they want to go, to bike where they want to go, and also folks who are transit, dependent on transit. When we first started looking at multimodal level of service standards, there weren't a lot of people out in the nation that are doing it. There's still not a lot. It's not easy to implement and such, and it takes a long time to educate and to get everybody on board, both internal staff and the development community. But through a lot of education, through some real successful projects like this, it's coming along, and we as a community are really committed towards making certain that people have good, efficient choices if they do want to use alternative modes. We try and make sure that they can get around the community and through the community in an automobile if that's what they choose, but they know that they have their options.
How do level service standards fit in with street design standards?
The street design standards really, in old school engineering, you're looking at traditional rights of way that would look at your travel lanes, your turn lanes, parking lanes, and maybe some bike lanes. Well, what we've done is expanded what our concept of the street network or the streetscape design is to include not only those elements, but also separated detached sidewalks that are appropriate width for the type of facility, so that if it's a very busy facility such as College Avenue just over to the east of us here, we have wide, very generous sidewalks and such. We also look at design elements as far as trees, those sorts of things, to really kind of round out what the concept of the street design is about.
So we come back in 10 years, 20 years, what will you have accomplished?
Well, we've got some very successful programs on the ground. I think what we'd like to do is just keep moving forward in the way that we have been. We keep trying to chip away and fill in the gaps in our existing system. We feel that when new development comes in, we get very good, very safe, very usable pedestrian facilities. We want to make sure that we're moving towards a very complete pedestrian network. That if people want to walk somewhere, they know that they can get there in a fairly direct manner. They don't have to take the roundabout route, and it's an inviting, usable option for them.
We're in Denver, Colorado, talking with Helen Thompson with the University of Colorado Health Sciences Center. What is the center?
The center is, I work for the Center for Human Nutrition, which is part of the Health Sciences Center here in Denver. And right now I'm working as the project director for a program called ALPS. That's the Active Living Partnership at Greater Stapleton. We're a project that's funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Active Living by Design projects.
And what's the idea behind ALPS? What are you trying to accomplish?
What we're trying to accomplish is to get people more active. What can you do in your everyday life that is going to make you more active and therefore more healthy? We're not asking people to necessarily go to the gym, put on spandex, but look for things in their everyday life that they can do and take advantage of this wonderfully built environment to become more active individuals.
Who belongs to your partnership?
Well, we have a great partnership of about 25 groups. We have Forest City, which is the developer of Stapleton, the Stapleton Foundation, the University of Colorado Health Sciences Center, including the Department of Family Medicine and the Center for Human Nutrition. Their transportation folks are on board. Our RTD, which is the bus folks at transportation, Livable Community Support Center, the various neighborhoods that surround Stapleton, because they're very important to our partnership. We're involving not only Stapleton itself, but those neighborhoods that surround Stapleton.
What have you been able to do so far? You're just getting started. It's less than a year, but what have you done so far?
You know, we are just getting started, but we have been able to accomplish some things. What our group is all about is looking at how programs and policy can influence people in their everyday lives to be more active. How can we help them take advantage of this built environment? So we're looking at some policy issues to make some of the streets safer, how make sure that our environment around us is built in such a way to be conducive to activity, and then bring programs to the residents of Stapleton and the surrounding neighborhoods so that they have an excuse to get out and use the trails, the bikeways, the paths. Things like right now, one of our projects is called the Passport to Active Living, and we actually have a little mock-up of a passport, and we have several events that people can participate in, and they get stamps in their passport for participating in those activities. activities such as Stapleton is having something called the Stapleton Stampede, which is a walk run. We just did something at Park Hill called the Fun Fest, where people walked around the park. They get a lot of exercise, looking at different booths, participating with some dancers and singers. Kids participated in a basketball clinic. One of the other neighborhoods is going to have a swimming party coming up this Friday. There's a project of one of the neighborhoods where they're going to look at one of the major streets, Colfax, and how things are going to change. It's going to be about a 3-mile walk, and it kind of kicks them off to participate in another program that we're introducing called Colorado on the Move, which is a program that gets people more active through simple changes. What can you do to just make some simple changes to increase by about 2,000 steps over your baseline each day and take away 100 calories to just get yourself started on a road to more healthy living?
And why the interest in healthy living? You're talking about a few more steps, a few fewer calories. Why is that important?
Mm-hmm. You know, right now, if you look at statistics, about 2/3 of the population is either overweight or obese. And that excess weight gain leads to other chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart disease. Those are very expensive diseases. So we're looking at some economics here. If people are healthier, they're more productive, they do better on the job, it doesn't cost their companies or themselves as much, they feel better, they just have more energy. We get a lot of comments from people who start down that path of more active living saying, oh my gosh, I feel better, I have more energy, I can play with my kids, I'm not so grouchy. So we want people to be happier and healthier and not cost as much.
And the active living program, Robert Johnson, gives you 5 years. At the end of 5 years, what do you hope to have accomplished?
You know, we hope to have people start incorporating this into their everyday life so they're not thinking about it. We don't want them this doesn't have to be a job for somebody. It's just what can you do in your everyday lives? And at Stapleton and these surrounding neighborhoods, we want people to be able to walk their kids to school, have kids walk or bike to school rather than having mom or dad take them. We want people to be able to do their daily activities by walking or biking and just incorporate that into their everyday lives so that at the end of 5 years we'll see an increase in the number of people that are able to do that and overall enjoy themselves, incorporate just the few extra things into their lives, everyday lives.
We're in Denver, Colorado, talking with Tom Gleason, who's Vice President of Public Relations with Forest City Stapleton. What is Forest City Stapleton?
Forest City is the master developer for the former Denver Airport. We were chosen by the city of Denver to implement the Citizens Development Plan for Stapleton.
How big a project is this?
Stapleton is in land size about 7.5 square miles. It's about a third the size of Manhattan. In New York, it is a tremendous infill opportunity for smart growth where a city is able to redevelop underdeveloped land right in the core of the city and create a more active, healthier community.
And what's your interest in the active living partnership that's been put together?
One of the things that has created a tremendous demand for the homes here at Stapleton is that people understand that this is going to be a community that pays attention to such things as walkable neighborhoods, places where you can live within easy walking distance of stores, schools, shops, open space, etc. Because that is the kind of place we are developing here at Stapleton, our project has been very successful and will continue to be successful because there is such great demand for that kind of infill urban development.
Is this something the development community in general has started to recognize?
I think the development community is starting to understand that if you provide opportunities for people to live in neighborhoods that are very pedestrian friendly, that are very compact but still have access to open space such as behind us here, parks, schools, etc., within walking distance, that there is a tremendous demand for that, particularly with younger families. The first wave of families buying homes at Stapleton, we have about 1,000 homes that are occupied now, Eventually we will have 12,000 homes and apartments. But the first wave of buyers are younger families of the type you see behind us here. They're looking for a community where their children can get to school very easily on their bicycle or by foot, and they are hoping from the very earliest days of their child's lives that they create a more active and healthier lifestyle for those children.
So building or designing for active living is a good business decision then?
It's a very good business decision when a developer designs a community to be a very active, healthy, walkable community. Because what we've seen is that most of our builders have had to establish waiting lists because there are so many people trying to buy homes here at Stapleton, because they understand this is the kind of community where you can leave the automobile behind, where you can walk, you can bicycle, you can do so many things that create a more active lifestyle, and also therefore a more healthy lifestyle.
We're in Victoria, British Columbia, talking with John Luton, who's Executive Director of Capital Bike and Walk. What is Capital Bike and Walk?
Capital Bike and Walk is an organization founded only about a year and a half ago to partly to provide support for the ProWalk, Probike conference here in Victoria that's just wound up, but also to establish a new practical, responsible advocacy organization that focuses on cycling and walking as means of transportation, to work with local governments and other people in the community who are interested in changing our transportation environment to support more walking and cycling.
What are some of the issues you'd be concerned with here in Victoria?
Well, Victoria's got a pretty good record so far. I mean, we have the highest level of cycling and walking in Canada, and we didn't get that way by accident. I mean, part of it is that it's a nice climate, and the city is compact. The weather's nice, good topography here, but it's also the work that I think the city has done, or community organizations have done, to promote changing the dynamic of the transportation environment to make it more bicycle friendly, and indeed to improve the pedestrian environment. And also the work we've done out there with various other organizations to develop skills training and to support education for cycling in particular, so that people feel safe on the road.
You mentioned the ProWalk, ProBike conference that just finished up. What's that?
ProWalk, ProBike is a gathering, biggest in North America, of cycling and walking professionals. It's like engineers, planners, healthcare folks, community leaders, advocates, others that are concerned about cycling and walking as means of transportation and as means of creating healthy communities and healthy citizens. It's 3 days of very intense seminars, presentations, workshops on best practices, most successful programs in cycling and walking. It's been a great conference, and I think a lot of people have left having learned a lot of new things, and will be taking fresh ideas back home with them to their communities, or indeed those folks that attended from here have some great new ideas from this conference about what they can do at home to keep the momentum up for cycling and walking in Victoria.
What sort of people go to a conference like that? Who was here?
Well, a lot of Americans, for the first time a lot of Canadians as well, engineers, planners, people that work for state and local governments or provincial governments, designing road infrastructure, developing programs to promote cycling in the workplace, or marrying up advocates with business to get people riding, healthcare folks that want to develop promotional programs to encourage people to live more actively, advocates that are pushing local governments or senior governments, for that matter, to make policies and develop projects that can achieve some of the objectives of creating active communities and encouraging cycling and walking.
And you said you had a number of local people as well as the people from across the country. And what difference do you think it will make locally here in Victoria to have had the conference here?
Well, locally, I think it's already made a difference. We were able to leverage a number of projects to improve the cycling environment, in particular with some of our trail networks, some of our bike lanes, some other facilities. I think what it's done also now as the conference leaves town, it's raised an awareness that this is a mainstream topic, a mainstream issue. It's the concern of a lot of people in governments in the community. And folks that here work as engineers or planners that attended, I think, picked up a lot of fresh information on what they can do to change the dynamics of a traffic environment that's in need of repair if we're going to create more livable communities. I also think it's created an awareness amongst the public in Victoria who saw, almost 600 delegates here wandering around the streets, talking with each other and talking to local citizens, talking to the media about the issues that surround cycling and walking in livable communities. And I think they'll be energized to make more progress on changing what's a great community but can always be improved on.
Once you catch up on your sleep, what do you do next?
What do I do next? Well, it's going to be tough. I've got to figure out when I can catch up on my sleep. I've still got a few events, but I think after that I've got to not stop working. We've picked up on all these lessons. I think we've created some energy and momentum, and I've got to go back at the community organizations, at governments and public agencies and say, hey you guys, we had this conference here, you picked up a lot of great ideas, let's get to work on implementing them because I see a lot of opportunities to improve on what's a great record.
We're in Malmö, Sweden, talking with Agneta Stahl from Lund University. Elderly person has a problem with the pavement. They trip, they fall. How big a problem is that?
It's very big. We started to study this in the beginning of the 90s, and by asking the elderly themselves what kind of incidents or accidents they've really been into when moving around in the traffic environment. And it was very surprising to everybody and to me that 65% of what they reported was incidents and accidents where they actually have fallen due to the maintenance situation on the pavements or pedestrian roads. And only about 3 to 4% were accidents where they had been hit down by a car, and that is very surprising.
What type of pavement tends to be the best? What type tends to be the worst?
It's of course the cobbles are the biggest problems, but also if it seems there is a false secureness on, for example, stone pavements that it seems like that they are even, but they are not. It's very, very small differences between the stones that make the problems. And also when it comes to the curb cuts, they have to be very, very good made, and there has to be no differences between the streets and the pavements for people, for example, with some walking aids when they're crossing the streets.
What are the implications of your findings for the cities and the jurisdictions that maintain the sidewalks and the pavements?
I think there is a growing awareness of this situation today, and that is due to the fact that we have new methods of collecting accidents in traffic. It started around on a trial for 10 years ago, and in this part of Sweden we have now a complement to the police-reported accidents by hospital-reported accidents. So the municipalities start to see that there actually are great implications of the maintenance of the pavements, and there are big costs for the society for it. So there is a growing interest and also a growing pressure from the society to the jurisdictions to really try to do something. And that's what I have been doing here in Malmö, for example. by starting to make better pavements and pay more attention to the pedestrians, and specifically the elderly and the people with disabilities.
We're in Seattle, Washington, talking with Rob Ketcherside. You created something called the Seattle Clock Walk.
Right.
What's that?
So it's a walking tour of Seattle, starts in the International District and ends in Belltown, walking past a number of public clocks.
How'd you get interested in public clocks?
Actually, I don't wear a watch, and I still need to check and see what time it is sometimes when I arrive downtown to find out if I'm early or late, if I have time for a coffee. So I started noticing and looking out my bus that there was different clocks around downtown Seattle, and that's how it started.
And when you started doing a little research into the clocks, what's the history of clocks, public clocks in Seattle?
So some of them have really, really interesting histories, like the one at Coleman Dock for the Washington State ferries. That one started off as being on a tower and was knocked off by a ferry and floated away. And they brought it back, put it up again, and then they had to rebuild the ferry for automobiles, and stuck it in a warehouse for several years, and then found it about 15 years later. So some of them are really interesting. Some of the clocks themselves have very interesting histories, and then as a whole, the biggest chunk of them are street or called post clocks. They're in the street right of way or on the sidewalk, and there's kind of a sordid history there where they were getting kind of dilapidated in the 50s and kind of getting run down, and City of Seattle passed some laws restricting them in order to improve the streetscape, basically. And a number were ripped out around that time, and we're left with about 10 around the city and 6 in downtown Seattle. And there's also a number on buildings or on signs outside of buildings, and then there's ones like the one here, which are installed as art projects in the last decade or two.
So someone that goes on your clock walk, what do they see?
Well, they're going to see the whole gambit of what I just said. It starts with transit, with the old train stations down in the International District and Pioneer Square. They're going to see 5 or 6 post clocks. They're going to see clocks on facades of buildings. They're going to actually go down into the bus tunnel. Hopefully they come when the bus tunnel's open. It'll be closed for a year at the end of 2005. But there's 2 of them that are down inside the bus tunnel that were created as artworks. And they're going to go through all the major neighborhoods of downtown Seattle, actually every neighborhood of downtown Seattle, and some of the best areas of Seattle as a whole, and a nice walkable tour. I actually haven't timed it yet, but I think it's about an hour and a half walk, so you have to be a little bit fit for it.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.